So welcome back guys to another video, and if you guys been following my channel for a while, you guys know I'm a huge advocate for emulation. I feel like it's very important for preservation of gaming history. Rather it's trying out a game or capturing gameplay footage, I love the convenience, and rather it's the Raspberry Pi or purchasing re-releases, emulation is pretty awesome. So today I thought I would talk about games that I enjoy, some of my favorite games that I have found through emulation. With that being said, what are some of your favorite games you have found through emulation? Leave a comment below, and if this is your first time on the channel, welcome, and be sure to subscribe and share this video with all your friends. It really helps out the channel. So the first game I want to talk about is actually a Sega Genesis game called Crusader of Smite. Now, showing the gameplay footage, yes, this is a Zelda clone. It looks very much like Zelda. This was Sega's answer to Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, and some may say imitation's the highest form of flattery because this is actually a really fun game. I mean, it's a coming-of-age story. You're playing as this 14-year-old kid named Corona who is, stepping in his father's footsteps to become an adventurer, and he actually loses his communication with humans, and he has to talk to animals and has to save the world, and there's time travel. There's just so much to this game that honestly, once you look past the fact that this is a Zelda clone, you're going to be just caressed by this brilliant game. I'm telling you guys, I really hope that we get this on the Nintendo Switch because this game's kind of expensive. What am I kidding? This game is very expensive. So, I mean, other than emulation, and maybe if you're lucky to get a reproduction cart with a battery, I say that because I ordered this game, a reproduction from China. It didn't come with a battery, so order at your risk. Now, who doesn't remember Willow on the NES? Speaking of Zelda clones, it was Capcom's little Zelda game tied in with a movie license that starred Val Kilmer, and it was a really big deal. I don't really remember the movie too much, even though I do remember watching it a lot. But this is something I want to talk about because with emulation, I can play the arcade version of Willow. The arcade version of Willow from Capcom is drastically different than its NES port. I mean, a matter of fact, this isn't an action-adventure game, this is more of a side-scroller. Willow plays almost like a floaty Mega Man, complete with a charged buster attack. And, Val Kilmer's, character, I forget his name, Mad Gardigan, I think that's his name. Or Madagascar. Someone's going to correct me in the comments. But, he plays as your, stereotypical night slasher from any sort of Capcom game. But it is not a very long game. It's colorful, it's got a great soundtrack, and it's a lot of fun. And it's a shame, other than, if you're lucky enough to find an arcade cabinet in the wild or at some sort of barcade, the only other way to play this game is through emulation, and I cannot recommend it enough. One of my favorite games on the original Game Boy was Avenging Spirit. I thought it was a very ambitious, kind of outlandish adventure game where you were playing essentially as a ghost and you would possess different enemies, and each enemy would have their own moveset. Well, the reason I'm talking about this game is because I had no idea that there was also an arcade port of Avenging Spirit, and I finally got to play that through emulation, and wow, playing the Game Boy version for so long and then enjoying it and then going to the arcade, it's almost like seeing a color television for the first time. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but I mean, it's just such a good game, and it's one of those titles that you don't hear a whole lot of people talk about. But Avenging Spirits is a lot of fun. I mean, I know you can get a digital copy, you can download it on the 3DS eShop while it's still open, because a physical copy, for the Game Boy at least, it's a pretty penny, so I can only imagine what the arcade cabinet would cost. You're just gonna have to emulate it. Now, there's a console that I fell in love with emulation because I didn't have one growing up. As a matter of fact, it wasn't really around as I was growing up, and of course I'm talking about the Turbografx 16. The Turbografx 16 was kind of a rogue console that I heard in magazines and through friends of friends, because we had a KB Toys for a small period of time, but it didn't last that long, and Radio Shacks weren't really that big. So a lot of the retailers that carried Turbografx 16s, they just didn't really carry them where I was. I mean, we were all either a Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo person, but I have found so many fantastic games through emulation playing the Turbografx 16 that it's become one of my favorite consoles of all time. And one game that I really have to talk about that may surprise a lot of people, given the extensive library that the Turbografx 16 has, but one game that really sticks out in my mind is Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. You know, this isn't a great game, and I know there was an NES port, but something about this game resonates with me because when I play this game, it reminds me that this would be something I would have loved to play as a kid. This is a game that I would have loved to rent over and over again. I would have tried to have late fees just to get through it. This would have been a game I would have been oddly obsessed with because it's got just the right amount of controllability. It's got really nice music, the colorful sprites. It's just a really fun game. So, is it one of my favorite Turbografx 16 games? No, it's not, but it's definitely a game that I hold in high regard. And when I think about the Turbografx 16, I think about Jackie Chan Action Kung Fu because it reminds me that there was a lot I missed out on that I can play now through emulation. But anyway guys, those are some of my favorite games I have found through emulation, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified of all future videos that come out on this channel. Anyway guys, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.